Hello there, and welcome to the AstroSleep channel. I am so glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe you have had a long day, filled with the noise and the rush of the waking world. Maybe your mind is still busy, trying to sort through the lists and the demands of modern life. Or maybe you are simply the kind of person who finds comfort in the vast, quiet mysteries of our history. The kind of person who likes falling asleep to deep thoughts and cosmic journeys. Whatever brought you here, know that you have arrived at a sanctuary. This is a place where time slows down, where the urgent ticking of the clock fades into a gentle, rhythmic pulse, and where the only expectation placed upon you is that you simply be. You do not need to learn anything tonight. You do not need to memorize facts or solve problems. The stories we are about to tell and the ancient world we are about to visit are merely vehicles for your rest. They are a soft current designed to carry you away from the shore of your day and out into a calm, dark sea of sleep. Tonight, we are not just looking up at the stars. We are drifting back through the currents of time itself. We are traveling back to a period that defines the very shape of our world, a time when the Earth itself decided to rest. We are returning to the last ice age. But before we step into that pristine white silence, let us first take a moment to settle into the safety of the present moment. I invite you to find a comfortable position, perhaps lying down with the blankets pulled up to your chin, creating a warm, safe cocoon for your body. Allow your eyes to close, shutting out the visual noise of the room. Let the darkness behind your eyelids become a soft velvet curtain, separating you from the world outside. Take a deep, slow breath in, feeling your chest rise like a slow tide, and then release that breath, letting it flow out of you like a long, weary sigh. With every breath out, imagine that you are releasing a little bit of the tension you have been carrying. Feel the muscles in your face soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let your brow smooth out. And let your eyes sink deeper into their sockets. Feel a wave of heaviness travel down your neck and into your shoulders. If your shoulders are hiked up towards your ears, let them drop. Let them fall away, as if gravity has gently increased its hold on you. Feel this sensation of warmth and heaviness flow down your arms, past your elbows, all the way to your fingertips. Your hands are resting now. They have nothing to hold, nothing to carry, nothing to fix. Let them lie open and still. Feel the weight of your back sinking into the mattress, feeling fully supported by the surface beneath you. You are held. You are safe. Allow your hips to relax. Allow your legs to grow heavy and long. And feel that relaxation flow all the way down to your ankles and your toes. Imagine for a moment that the air in your room is cool and crisp, like the air of a winter night. But you are warm, you are sheltered. The contrast between the cool air and your warm blankets only makes you feel more secure, more tucked away. This is the feeling we will carry with us on our journey tonight. We are going to visit a world of ice, a world of snow and wind, but we will do so as silent, warm observers. We will float above the glaciers, safe and comfortable, watching the ancient drama of the Earth unfold in slow motion. We often think of the Ice Age as a time of harshness, a time of struggle. And it is true that the cold was intense. But tonight, I invite you to see it differently. Think of the Ice Age not as a disaster, but as a hibernation. Just as a bear retreats into a cave to sleep through the winter, there are times when the entire planet needs to slow down. There are times when the Earth draws the white sheets of ice up over its continents, tucking itself in for a sleep that lasts not just for a season, but for thousands upon thousands of years. In this deep freeze, the chaotic energy of the world is quieted. The roaring oceans turn to silent statues of ice. The bustling forests transform into open, peaceful tundras where the wind whispers secrets to the grass. It is a time of preservation, a time when the frantic pace of life yields to the slow, deliberate rhythm of survival and endurance. We will see creatures of immense size, the woolly mammoths and the giant sloths, moving through this white landscape with a grace and slowness that seems impossible to us now. They are the guardians of this frozen realm, living symbols of patience. We will explore the invisible forces that caused this great sleep, the slow dance of our planet with the sun and the other giants of our solar system. We will see how a simple tilt, a slight wobble in the Earth's spin, can summon the ice or banish it. It is a reminder that we are part of a vast cosmic clockwork, a mechanism so large and so slow that a single tick of its second hand takes lifetimes to complete. If these calm, curious explorations help you unwind, I invite you to like or subscribe to the AstroSleep channel. It helps other sleepy souls find their way here too, one quiet listener at a time. And now, there is nothing left for you to do but rest. The day is done. The world is turning safely without your help. Let your mind relax, your breathing slow, and your body become light, as if gravity itself has eased to let you float. Let us begin our drift into the white, silent past. To understand why the Earth falls asleep, we must first look away from the snow-covered ground. We must lift our gaze from the frozen lakes and the white tundras and look up into the vast, silent cathedral of space. There is a secret hidden in the darkness above us. It is a secret of movement, a secret of rhythm. We often think of our planet as a steady, unchanging rock, spinning faithfully in the same circle year after year, century after century. But the Earth is not a machine. It is a dancer. And like any dancer, it moves with a complexity and a grace that can only be understood if we watch for a very, very long time. There is no single factor that explains why the Earth was plunged into the frigid conditions of the Ice Age. It was not a sudden accident. It was not a mistake. Instead, it was the result of a long, celestial harmony. A scientist named Milankovitch once looked up at the stars and realized that the collective changes in the Earth's position relative to the Sun are the true drivers of our long-term climate. He saw that the Earth does not travel alone. It is gently pushed and pulled, swayed and rocked by the invisible hands of the cosmos. Let us drift now into the first movement of this great dance. There is a rhythm to the path we travel. We are taught that the Earth orbits the Sun in a circle, a perfect ring of light. But in the deep expanse of time, this is not quite true. The Earth's orbit breathes. Over a cycle of 100,000 years, the shape of our path around the Sun changes. It stretches and relaxes, shifting from a near-perfect circle to a slightly more oval, elliptical shape. Imagine a rubber band resting on a table. When it is relaxed, it is round. But if you were to gently pull on two sides, it would lengthen. This is what happens to our home. The Earth is caught in a gravitational conversation with the other giants of our solar system. The massive presence of Jupiter and the ringed beauty of Saturn are far away, yes, but their gravity is strong enough to reach across the void. They tug on our little blue world. They whisper to it across the millions of miles, and when their pull is stronger, Earth is forced into a more elliptical orbit. This is the cycle of eccentricity. It is a heartbeat that beats only once every 100 millennia. When the orbit is stretched, the Earth finds itself traveling on a longer, lonelier path. There are times in this cycle when we drift much further from the warmth of the sun than usual. This moment, when the planet is furthest from its star, is called aphelion. In a highly elliptical orbit, this distance becomes vast. The sun appears smaller in the sky, a distant lantern rather than a roaring fire. During these times, the amount of solar radiation that reaches the Earth can drop significantly. It is estimated that the sunlight falling on our atmosphere can be around 20 to 3% less than when we are closest to the sun. 23% less light, 23% less warmth to heat the oceans and the land. It is a slow cooling. It is not a sudden freeze, but a gentle dimming of the light. The Earth travels through the cold dark of the outer orbit, and the winters begin to lengthen. The summers become shorter, cooler, unable to melt the snow that fell the year before. Layer by layer, the cold begins to settle in. The planet is simply following the path laid out for it by Jupiter and Saturn, drifting into the cool shadows of the solar system, obeying the slow, eccentric rhythm of the stars. But the orbit is only the first step in the dance. There is another movement, more subtle, yet just as powerful. There is a gentle bowing of the head. As the Earth spins, it is tilted on its axis. We know this tilt is what gives us our seasons: summer when we lean toward the sun, and winter when we lean away. But this tilt is not fixed. It is not rigid. Like a ship rocking gently on a calm sea, the angle of the Earth's tilt shifts back and forth over time. This is the cycle of obliquity. It is a slow, nodding motion that completes a cycle roughly every 40 to 1,000 years. Imagine a spinning top that is almost perfectly upright. When it stands tall, the sun's light hits the equator directly, and the poles remain in a constant twilight of cool temperatures. But as it tilts over, the seasons become extreme. The more tilted the Earth, the more extreme the seasons become. A deep tilt exposes the poles to harsh, direct sunlight in the summer, melting the ice. But when the Earth is less tilted, something magical happens. The planet stands a little straighter. The seasons become mild. The difference between summer and winter begins to blur, and this, strangely enough, is the secret to the ice. To build a glacier, you do not need bitterly cold winters. You need cool summers. When the Earth's tilt is shallow, the summer sun is not strong enough to melt the snow that fell during the winter. The snow sits there, patient and white. It reflects the sunlight back into space, keeping the ground cool. Then the next winter comes, and more snow falls on top of it. Year after year, century after century, the snow accumulates. It compresses into ice. It grows thick and heavy. This cycle of obliquity is like the Earth closing its eyes, turning its face slightly away from the glare of the sun. It is a gesture of rest by standing straighter, by softening the contrast between the seasons. The planet allows the ice to gather. It allows the white blanket to spread, not out of anger, but out of a need for balance. The ice sheets are born from this gentleness, from a summer that was too kind to melt the snow. And there is still one final movement in this cosmic ballet. There is a slow wobble. The Earth does not just spin, it sways. Like a toy top that is beginning to slow down. The axis of our planet traces a circle in the sky. This movement is known as axial precession. It happens because the Earth is not a perfect sphere. The gravitational influences from the Sun and the Moon pull at us, causing the Earth to bulge outward slightly at the equator. This bulge acts like a handle for gravity to hold onto, causing the axis to wobble. This is a cycle that takes 26,000 years to complete. It is the cycle of the Great Year. As the Earth wobbles, the North Star changes. Today, our axis points to Polaris, the bright star that guides our ships. But in the deep past and in the deep future, our axis points to other stars or to the empty darkness between them. This wobble changes the timing of our seasons. It decides whether we are closest to the sun during our winter or during our summer. When the wobble aligns just right, it can make the seasons soft and dreamy or sharp and intense. In the modern day, we are closest to the sun during the northern hemisphere's winter, which makes the cold less biting, less severe. But as the wobble turns, the alignment shifts. Imagine the complexity of this. You have the orbit stretching and shrinking like a breathing lung. You have the axis tilting and straightening like a nodding head. And you have the wobble spinning slowly like a dying top. These three cycles, eccentricity, obliquity, and precession, weave together. They overlap. Sometimes they cancel each other out, and the climate remains stable. But sometimes, every 100,000 years or so, they align in a perfect, quiet unison. The orbit stretches far from the sun. The tilt straightens to cool the summers. The wobble turns the hemisphere away from the warmth. When these three keys unlock the door together, the solar radiation reaching the Earth drops. The heat that usually bathes the continents is lost to the void, and the Earth responds. It does not fight. It simply accepts the cold. It allows the glaciers to descend from the mountains. It allows the oceans to retreat. It enters the Ice Age. It is a reminder that we are small passengers on a very large vessel. The climate of our home is not just about the wind and the rain. It is about where we are in the universe. It is about the gravity of Jupiter pulling us gently into the dark. It is about the angle of the sun's rays hitting a snowbank in the ancient north. The scientist Milankovitch saw this clockwork. He saw that these cycles have been reliable factors in predicting the major ice ages so far. They are the heartbeat of the planet's history. They tell us that the ice is not an anomaly. It is part of the rhythm. Just as night follows day, the Ice Age follows the Warm Age. For millions of years, the Earth has been practicing this routine, drifting out, tilting in, wobbling slowly. In the silence of space, there is no sound to mark these changes. There is no grinding of gears. There is only the smooth, frictionless motion of a planet floating in the dark. We are drifting through one of these cycles even now. We are still in an ice age, technically speaking. We are merely in a warm pause, a brief interlude called an interglacial period. The ice has retreated for a moment, letting us build our cities and tell our stories. But the great gears are still turning. The orbit is still stretching. The axis is still wobbling. To understand the Ice Age is to understand patience. It takes tens of thousands of years for the ice to build up, layer by crystal layer, and it takes thousands of years for it to melt away. The Earth does nothing in a hurry. It has all the time in the universe. So, as we imagine the start of the last glacial period around 115,000 years ago, we must imagine it starting in the sky. Before the first snowflakes stayed on the ground, the message was sent from the stars. The light grew a little dimmer. The summers grew a little gentler. The great cosmic winter began not with a storm, but with a shift in the light. And down here, on the surface, the world began to change. The water began to lock itself away. The landscapes began to transform. Let us now descend from the stars. Let us float down through the atmosphere, past the thin clouds, and look at the world that this celestial dance created. Let us look at the white realm that waited for us. As we descend from the silent ballet of the cosmos, we feel the air change around us. We leave the vacuum of space and enter the upper atmosphere of our ancient Earth. Here, the message sent by the stars begins to take physical form. The tilt, the wobble, the stretch of the orbit, they all translate into a single, profound feeling, a gentle, pervasive cooling. It starts with a number that sounds deceptively small: 6 degrees. When we look back at the data from the last glacial period, we see that the average global temperature was only about 6 degrees Celsius colder than it is today. To our modern minds, accustomed to checking the weather app and seeing temperatures fluctuate by 10 degrees in a single day, a drop of 6 degrees might seem insignificant. It might seem like the difference between wearing a heavy coat or a light jacket. But in the language of a planet, 6 degrees is everything. 6 degrees is not just a number on a thermometer. It represents a colossal amount of thermal energy. Imagine the heat held in every ocean, from the surface waves down to the crushing depths. Imagine the warmth radiated by every continent, every forest, every desert sands. Imagine the energy swirling in the atmosphere, driving the winds and the storms. Now, imagine taking all of that vast global warmth and turning the dial down, just a little, just enough to quiet the system. A drop of 6 degrees is the difference between rain and snow. It is the difference between a river that flows and a river that stands still. It is the difference between a summer that melts the ice and a summer that allows the ice to stay. And so, the blanket begins to weave itself. It does not happen all at once. The Earth is too large, too heavy with memory to change its mind quickly. It happens over thousands of years, a slow-motion transformation that would be invisible to anyone living through a single lifetime. It begins in the high north. It begins in the places where the shadows are long. The snow falls. In our time, we expect the snow to vanish. We expect the spring sun to arrive like a conqueror, stripping the white away to reveal the green and brown earth beneath. But in this cooler world, the spring is gentle, the summer is shy. The sun rises, but its touch is faint. It does not have the strength to melt all the snow that fell during the long winter. And so, the old snow remains. It sits there, patient and still. And when the next winter arrives, new snow falls upon the old. Layer upon layer, year upon year, century upon century. The weight of the snow presses down. It squeezes out the air. It compresses the delicate snowflakes into hard, dense granules and then, finally, into solid blue ice. This is how a glacier is born. It is not made of water that froze. It is made of time. It is made of 1,000,000 winters stacked on top of each other, preserved in a state of suspended animation. As the millennia drift by, these patches of ice begin to grow. They merge, They flow down from the mountain peaks like rivers of slow glass. They spill into the valleys. They spread across the plains. They become the great ice sheets. During the last glacial period, two major expanses of ice came to dominate the northern hemisphere. They were the titans of the age, the silent rulers of the continents. The first was the Laurentide ice sheet. It is difficult to comprehend the sheer scale of the Laurentide. It covered much of what we now call North America. It buried the land under a layer of ice that was, in some places, over 3 kilometers thick. Imagine looking up at a mountain of ice that scrapes the sky, a wall of white that stretches from the eastern horizon to the western sunset. Underneath this crushing weight lay the future sites of great cities: New York, Chicago, Toronto. They were all deep beneath the surface of the Laurentide. The ice was so heavy that it actually pushed the crust of the earth downward. It depressed the land, bending the solid rock of the continent as if it were a soft mattress. Even today, thousands of years later, the land in North America is still slowly rebounding, rising back up like a sponge that has been relieved of a heavy weight. The Laurentide was a world unto itself. Its surface was a windswept desert of frost, glowing with a pale, ethereal blue light. The winds that blew across it were katabatic winds, heavy, cold air pouring down the slopes of the ice sheet, sweeping across the tundra at the edges. But in the center of the sheet, there was a profound stillness. A silence so deep that it felt like the pause between heartbeats. Across the ocean, its sibling rose to meet it, the Fennoscandian ice sheet. This great blanket covered northern Europe. It swallowed Scandinavia, stretched across the Baltic Sea, and reached down into the plains of Germany and Poland. It locked the fjords in crystal. It turned the turbulent seas into solid white plains. Like the Laurentide, it was a sculptor. As it moved, glacially slow, grinding inch by inch over the bedrock, it carved the landscape, it smoothed the mountains, it gouged out the basins that would one day become lakes. These ice sheets were not destroyers, they were preservers. Whatever lay beneath them was kept safe, frozen in time, protected from the erosion of wind and rain. They were the Earth's way of hitting the pause button. But to build such massive structures, the Earth had to pay a price. The water had to come from somewhere. The ice sheets were thirsty giants, and they drank from the oceans. As the water evaporated from the seas and fell as snow upon the ice sheets, it did not return to the ocean. It stayed on the land. It was locked away in the great white vaults. And so, the level of the oceans began to fall. Slowly, steadily, the sea retreated. It pulled back from the coastlines, revealing land that had been hidden for eons. The average sea level during the height of the Ice Age was much, much lower than it is today, over 100 meters lower. This retreat of the water changed the shape of the map. It erased islands and created bridges. The most famous of these was Beringia. Today, the Bering Strait is a stretch of cold, choppy water separating Siberia from Alaska. But in the quiet of the Ice Age, the water was gone. In its place lay a vast, grassy plain connecting the two continents. It was not a narrow bridge, it was a country of its own, a wide, flat land known as the Mammoth Steppe. This land bridge was the gateway between worlds. It emerged from the sea like a secret path, allowing the life of Asia to wander slowly into the Americas. It was a bridge built by the cold, a connection made possible only because the Earth was sleeping. The landscape that wasn't covered by ice was also transformed. With so much water locked away in the glaciers, the world became drier. The lush, humid forests that we know today shrank back into small refuges near the equator. In their place, the world was covered in tundra and dry grasslands. Picture a landscape of endless horizons, a world of pale greens, browns, and golds. The air is dry and crisp, the vegetation is low to the ground. Tough grasses, hardy shrubs, mosses, and lichens. There are no dense jungles to block the view. You can see for miles and miles, watching the clouds drift shadows across the rolling plains. It is an austere beauty. It is a world stripped of excess. It is simple, clean, and quiet. The atmosphere itself seemed to hold its breath. The dust from the dry plains would sometimes be picked up by the wind, creating hazy, golden sunsets that lingered for hours. The light during the Ice Age had a different quality, sharper, clearer, reflecting off the vast surfaces of snow and ice, bouncing back into the sky until the whole world seemed to glow with a diffuse, pearlescent luminance. To stand on the edge of the tundra, looking out at the wall of the Laurentide ice sheet, would be a spiritual experience. You would feel the cold radiating from it, a physical presence of the past. You would hear the occasional groan of the ice as it settled, a deep, resonant boom that traveled through the ground and into your bones. But mostly, you would hear the wind, the sound of air moving over a world that has stopped rushing. There is a comfort in this image. We often fear the cold because we associate it with death. But ice is also a form of stability. It holds things in place. It prevents decay. A world wrapped in ice is a world that is being kept safe. Think of the ice sheet as a heavy quilt. When we sleep, we pull the quilt up to our chins. We cover ourselves to feel secure, to create a boundary between us and the world. The earth did the same. It pulled the white sheets of the Laurentide and the Fennoscandian over its northern lands.
It tucked itself in.
Underneath that blanket, the seeds of the future were waiting. The soil was resting, gathering strength for the distant spring that would not come for another 10,000 years. But for now, there was no hurry. There was no need to grow, no need to bloom, no need to change. There was only the ice, the beautiful, silent, eternal ice. The drop in temperature, those 6 degrees, was an invitation to stillness. It was a command to the molecules of water to slow down, to stop their dancing and link arms, to form the solid structures of crystals. It was a global meditation. And in this quieter, drier, wider world, life found a way to not just survive, but to become magnificent. The stage was set. The white curtain had fallen. The backdrop of snow and tundra was in place. And now, the actors could step onto the stage. But before we meet them, let us linger for just a moment longer on the feeling of the ice itself. Let your mind touch the surface of a glacier. Feel the smoothness of it. It is cool, but not painful. It is solid. It is ancient water. Water that knew the world before us. Water that has forgotten the ocean and learned the patience of the stone. The world is white. The sky is a pale steel blue. The silence is vast. You are safe here. You are watching a world that has already happened, a story that has already been told. The ice cannot hurt you. It can only lull you into a deeper state of relaxation. It reminds you that it is okay to stop. It is okay to be still. It is okay to let the winter cover you for a while. As the white blanket settles over the continents, transforming the familiar green earth into a realm of silence and frost, a question arises in the stillness. How does life endure? How does a beating heart continue its rhythm when the world outside has turned to ice? The answer lies in a secret language, a whisper passed between the cells of living things. It is a directive from nature, simple and profound. To survive the cold, you must become a world unto yourself. You must build a fortress of warmth. And so, the Ice Age became the time of the giants. We call this era the time of the megafauna. The word itself feels heavy, grounded. Mega meaning great, fauna meaning animal. These were the great animals, creatures of such immense proportions that they seemed to belong to a completely different version of reality. Some of the largest of these creatures weighed 4,500 kilograms. Imagine standing in a snowy field and feeling the ground tremble, a slow, rhythmic vibration traveling up through the soles of your feet. It is not an earthquake. It is the approach of life. It is the sound of tons of muscle and bone moving with a deliberate, graceful slowness through the drifts. Why did everything tend towards the gigantic during the Ice Age? Why did the deer grow larger? Why did the bears expand? Why did the ancestors of the sloth, who today are small and light enough to hang from branches, become as heavy as cars? Science gives us a name for this phenomenon. It is called Bergmann's rule. It sounds like a dry academic term, but tonight, let us think of it as the law of warmth. It is a rule of kindness, really. It describes how, for animals that produce their own body heat, like mammals, the colder the environment becomes, the larger their body size grows. It is a matter of geometry. It is a matter of holding on. Think of a small cup of tea left out on a winter porch. The steam rises, the heat escapes quickly into the hungry air, and within minutes, the tea is cold. It is small. Its center is too close to its edge. The cold can reach its heart with ease. Now, think of a great stone cauldron filled with hot water. It is vast. It is deep. The air touches only the surface. The heat buried deep in the center has nowhere to go. It is insulated by the sheer volume of the water around it. It stays hot for hours. It stays hot all through the long night. This is the secret of the surface area to volume ratio. Larger-bodied mammals have a lower surface area compared to their volume. This simply means they have less skin exposed to the freezing wind relative to the massive amount of heat-generating body mass inside them. Their size prevents them from losing heat easily to the surroundings. So, to be big is to be warm. To be massive is to be safe. Colder temperatures meant more pressure on animals to minimize heat loss if they wanted to survive. And nature responded by expanding them. It wrapped them in layers of muscle and fat, pushing their skin further and further away from their hearts. It turned them into walking castles where the inner chambers were always kept at a gentle tropical temperature, no matter how fiercely the blizzard raged outside. There is a comfort in this largeness. When we imagine these creatures, we shouldn't feel fear. We should feel a sense of stability. In a world of whipping winds and shifting snows, these giants were anchors. They were heavy enough that the wind could not push them. They were large enough that the cold could not bite them. They moved slowly. When you are that big, you do not rush. You do not dart or scurry. You drift. You float over the land with the momentum of a ship at sea. The megafauna moved with a dignity that matched the landscape. They were the mountains that breathed. This strategy of size was the general theme of the age. Across the tundra, across the steppes, across the frozen forests, the silhouette of life was expanded. In this frozen world, the body became a vessel for conserving energy. Every calorie was precious. Every spark of heat was a treasure to be guarded. By growing large, these animals created an internal summer that they carried with them wherever they went. Imagine being one of these creatures. You are wrapped in thick fur, perhaps a double coat that traps a layer of warm air against your skin. Beneath that, a thick layer of fat acts as the ultimate insulation. You are a self-contained ecosystem. The storm may howl around you, the temperature may drop, but inside, your blood flows warm and steady. Your heart pumps a slow, powerful rhythm, like a drum beating in a deep cave. You are impervious. The frost gathers on your outer hairs, turning you white like the snow, but you do not feel it. You are safe inside the cathedral of your own body. This evolutionary push towards the gigantic proves that there were lots of different ways to adapt, but the most successful way was simply to become more substantial, to occupy more space, to assert one's existence against the emptiness of the ice. As we visualize this era, we populate the white plains with these shapes. We see them in the distance, dark mounds against the snow. We see the steam rising from their breath, creating little clouds that hang in the still air. They are not struggling. They are enduring. In the logic of the Ice Age, gravity is a friend, weight is a blanket. The heaviness of the body is what keeps the spirit tethered to the earth. And it wasn't just about the cold. It was about efficiency. A large engine burns fuel slowly, steadily. These animals could travel for miles, plodding rhythmically across the land bridge of Beringia without tiring. Their size gave them an inertia that carried them through the hardships. We often think of adaptation as a frantic race, the fastest runner, the sharpest claw. But here, in the deep freeze, adaptation was a slow, patient expansion. It was a softening of the edges, a rounding of the form. The law of warmth dictates that the center must hold. And to hold the center, you must build strong walls. The megafauna were the architects of their own survival, building walls of flesh and fur that stood tall against the epoch of ice. So, as we drift deeper into this script of sleep, let yourself feel that sense of heaviness. Let your own body feel large and heavy in your bed. Imagine that you too are obeying Bergmann's rule. You are expanding into the mattress. You are becoming vast. The air in your room might be cool, but your core is warm. Your blankets are your fur, your protection. You are creating your own microclimate, your own little pocket of summer in the middle of the night. There is nothing small or fragile about you right now. You are solid. You are grounded. You are conserving your energy, just as the great bears and the mammoths did. You have nothing to do but lie there and let your body generate its own gentle heat. The world outside can be cold. The world outside can be chaotic, but in here, under the covers, you are a giant in repose. You are a master of thermodynamics, keeping your warmth safely tucked inside.
And as we understand this law, this simple, quiet rule of physics and biology,
we can begin to see the faces of the giants, They are emerging from the mist now. The most famous of them all, the icons of the ice. They are coming closer, their footsteps silent in the deep snow, their tusks curving like the crescent moon. We have spoken of the law. Now, let us meet the spirits who followed it. Let us meet the wanderers who wore the woolly coats, the ones who carried the weight of the Ice Age on their broad, strong shoulders. Let us now focus our eyes on the horizon. The wind shifts, blowing a veil of fine, powdery snow across the plain. And as the mist clears, shapes begin to form. They are vast, dark silhouettes against the pale blue of the glacier. They are the true children of the ice. They are the woolly mammoths. For most of us, these creatures are the picture of the Ice Age itself. When we close our eyes and think of this time, we see them. We see a towering, dominating presence marching through great snowdrifts, seemingly impervious to the cold. They are the kings and queens of the north, the elder spirits of a world that has moved on. But let us drift closer. Let us move past the legend and look at the gentle reality of these beings. We often imagine them as monsters of size, dwarfing everything around them. But the truth is more intimate. Woolly mammoths weren't actually much bigger than the modern-day elephants we know and love. Measurements made from their quiet, resting skeletons tell us that their shoulder height was around 3.5 meters. In fact, some of the larger male African elephants wandering the savannas today can reach heights of 4 meters. So they were not mountains of impossible height. They were familiar. They were grounded. If you were to stand beside one, you would feel a kinship with it, recognizing the slow, intelligent gaze that elephants possess. But while they shared a height with their modern cousins, the mammoth was built for a different purpose. They were built for silence. They were built for warmth. They were built to be a walking home. Look at their silhouette. They differed in their proportions, possessing longer bodies and shorter legs than modern elephants. It is a design of stability. They were low to the ground, centered, heavy. Paleontologists think this shape evolved so they didn't have to stoop so much to graze. Imagine the ease of that life. The tundra vegetation, the mosses, the tough grasses, the small shrubs is short. It hugs the earth to escape the wind. And so, the mammoth hugs the earth too. It does not need to strain. It does not need to reach high into the trees like the elephants of the rainforest. It simply lowers its great head, sweeping its trunk across the snow-dusted ground, gathering its food in a slow, rhythmic motion. It is a life of little effort, a life of gentle, sweeping curves. And covering this sturdy frame was a masterpiece of insulation. The woolly mammoth aptly had warm, double-coated fur. Imagine wearing a coat made by nature itself, designed over thousands of years to be the perfect shield. The coat was separated into 2 distinct layers. First, there was a thick underwool. This was the inner sanctuary, a dense, soft mat of fine hairs that trapped the body heat close to the skin. It was like a layer of felt, impenetrable to the biting wind, and over this soft underlayer lay a second layer of longer outer hairs. These were the guards. They were long, coarse, and shaggy, hanging down like a grand flowing robe. They caught the snow before it could reach the skin. They shed the water. They fluttered in the breeze, a curtain of russet and brown moving against the white landscape. Together, these 2 layers created a barrier so effective that a mammoth could stand in a blizzard and feel nothing but peace. They were wrapped in a permanent embrace, but the warmth went deeper than the fur. Further aiding their insulation was a layer of fat. Beneath that thick skin, there was a reservoir of energy up to 9 centimeters thick. 9 centimeters of pure protection. This layer of fat acted as a thermal wrap, sealing the warmth inside the body. It was also a storehouse, a pantry of energy that allowed the mammoth to survive the lean times of winter without worry. Even their ears were designed for this quiet, cold world. We think of elephants with great, fanning ears that flap to release heat. But the mammoth had small, hair-covered ears. They were tucked close to the head, minimized to prevent heat loss. They were listening ears, small and sensitive, tuned to the low-frequency rumbles of the herd and the whistle of the wind over the ice. And there is one more feature, a secret hidden in the shape of their skull. If you look at the profile of a mammoth, you see a high, domed head. They had a raised bump on the top of their heads. This was not just for show. Inside this bump were large sinuses, caverns of bone and tissue filled with air. This structure may have helped them to humidify and warm the air as they were breathing. Think of the genius of this. The air of the Ice Age was dry and frigid. To breathe it directly into the lungs would be a shock. So, the mammoth evolved a built-in heating system. As they inhaled, the cold air would travel through these large, warm sinuses. It would swirl and slow down, picking up moisture and heat from the body before gently entering the lungs. It was a useful skill for Arctic conditions. It meant that with every breath, the mammoth was harmonizing with its environment. It was taking the cold and turning it into warmth. It was taking the dry and turning it into soft, humid breath. And when they exhaled, clouds of steam would billow from their trunks, hanging in the air like temporary ghosts. A herd of mammoths standing together would be wreathed in this mist, a collective fog of warmth generated by their own bodies. They moved slowly through the landscape, like elder spirits from a time before spirals. In their light, we see a universe that was younger, wilder, and still learning to become what it is. They did not hurry. There was nowhere to rush to. The steppe stretched out forever, a sea of grass and ice. They were social creatures. They moved in family groups, matriarchs leading the way with a wisdom passed down through generations. They touched each other with their trunks, a gesture of reassurance. I am here, we are together. The ice is vast, but we are warm. Imagine drifting alongside them now. You are weightless, floating just above the snow. You can hear the crunch of the frozen crust breaking under their massive padded feet, but the sound is muffled, soft. It is a rhythmic crump, crump, crump that feels like a heartbeat. You can see the sway of their long, shaggy coats. The wind catches the tips of the hairs, but the animals do not shiver. They are content. They are perfectly adapted. They belong here. There is a sense of timelessness about them. They are not fighting the winter. They are part of it. They are the winter made flesh. They are the mountains that have decided to go for a walk. And in this deep past, they were successful. They thrived. They walked from Europe to Asia and across the land bridge into North America. They were travelers of the globe, citizens of the cold. Despite our best efforts to resurrect them, most recently with the woolly mouse that shared a mammoth gene for body fat, woolly mammoths are sadly extinct. They are gone from the waking world. But in the dream world, in the quiet theater of history, they are still walking. They are still drifting through the blue shadows of the glaciers. They are still warming the air with their breath. They are still grazing on the low grasses, their bodies heavy and safe, their small ears listening to the silence. They remind us that it is possible to be gentle and strong at the same time. It is possible to face the cold and remain warm. It is possible to carry your home with you, wrapped in layers of care, insulated by your own inner resources. The mammoth does not run from the ice, it embraces it. It wears the cold like a cloak, and in doing so, it finds peace. As we watch the herd slowly fade into the distance, moving towards the white horizon, we feel a sense of calm. They are going where they need to go. They are following the ancient paths. They are safe in the memory of the earth. And as they vanish into the mist, we turn our gaze to another part of this frozen world. We look for a place even more remote, a sanctuary where the story of the mammoth lingered longer than anywhere else. A secret island lost in the polar sea as the great ice sheets began to retreat, pulling back their white hems from the continents. The world began to change. The silence of the Ice Age was replaced by the noise of a new era. The forests grew back. The humans expanded. The great herds of the mainland began to fade, dissolving like mist under the morning sun. But the story did not end there. There is a secret chapter to the history of the mammoth, a final, quiet verse that was sung long after the rest of the song had finished. Far to the north, in the chilly waters of the Arctic Ocean, lies a place called Wrangel Island. It is a rugged, remote piece of land, a lonely sentinel standing guard in the polar sea. To the eye, it seems empty. Clouds cling to its peaks, and the waves crash endlessly against its rocky shores. But for thousands of years, this island was a sanctuary. It was a secret garden where the Ice Age refused to end. Most people believed that the woolly mammoths vanished all at once, wiped away by the changing climate or the hunting spears of early humans. But they didn't go extinct all at once. The truth is far more gentle. It is now accepted that a population of 500 to 1,000 woolly mammoths survived on Wrangel Island until around 4,000 years ago. Let that number sink in. 4,000 years ago. It is a date that feels startlingly close. To put it in perspective, let us travel in our minds to the hot, golden sands of Egypt. Picture the great pyramids of Giza rising from the desert floor. Picture the thousands of workers hauling the limestone blocks, the architects measuring the angles of the sun, the pharaohs establishing a civilization that we consider ancient history. That happened 4,500 years ago. So, when the great pyramids of Giza were being built, when the stones were being laid one by one under the blazing African sun, the woolly mammoths were still walking. That is, 1,000 years after the pyramids rose. While humanity was writing its first laws, while we were building cities and charting the stars, there was still a place on Earth where the giants roamed. While kings were being buried in golden sarcophagi, the mammoths were sleeping in the snow, breathing the cold, clean air of the north, unaware that they were supposed to be ghosts. How did they get there? How did they find this hiding place? Scientists think that the mammoths made it to the island across the land bridge of Beringia. Long ago, when the ice was at its thickest and the oceans were at their lowest, there was no ocean separating the island from the mainland. It was all one vast, continuous pasture. Beringia connected Alaska and Siberia. It was a highway of grass and sagebrush, a wide corridor where herds could wander freely for thousands of miles. The mammoths walked. They followed the seasons. They followed the smell of the fresh tundra grass. And some of them walked north. They walked until they reached the hills of what would become Wrangel Island. And then the world began to warm. The great celestial clock ticked forward. The ice sheets melted, returning their borrowed water to the seas. Slowly, gently, the ocean began to rise. It was not a flood. It was a creeping tide that took centuries to complete. Inch by inch, the water reclaimed the lowlands. The land bridge of Beringia was submerged under the Arctic Ocean. The connection to the mainland was severed. The highway was closed. But for the mammoths on Wrangel Island, this was not a trap. It was a protection. The rising water became a moat. It surrounded their home with a barrier of cold, deep blue. It cut them off from the predators, from the changing landscapes, and from the encroaching humans. They were left alone. Imagine the peace of that isolation. A population of just a few hundred souls, living in a world that belonged entirely to them. It was a pocket of time that had frozen. On the mainland, the world was rushing forward. The climate was shifting, the vegetation was changing. The chaos of the new epoch was taking over. But on the island, the rhythm remained the same. The seasons circled round and round. The long, dark winter, the brief, bright summer. The grass grew, the snow fell, and the mammoths continued their slow, majestic dance. They were smaller than their mainland ancestors, perhaps. Evolution often shrinks animals that live on islands, a way to fit the life to the land. But they were still mammoths. They still wore the heavy coats of russet wool. They still carried the curved tusks. They still touched trunks in the twilight, sharing the warmth of their breath. In this secluded haven, they lived for 6,000 years longer than their cousins. 6,000 years of extra time. 6,000 years of quiet grazing, of raising calves, of watching the northern lights dance overhead in green and violet ribbons. It is a comforting thought to know that nature provides refuges. To know that when the world changes, there are sometimes quiet corners where the old ways can linger. The island became a time capsule. If you could have stood on the shores of Wrangel Island 4,000 years ago, you would have seen a scene from the deep past. You would have heard the low rumble of their calls, a sound that had been silenced everywhere else on Earth. While the Egyptian sun baked the clay bricks, the Arctic wind fluffed the fur of the last giants. The contrast is beautiful. The heat and the cold, the stone and the snow, the permanence of the pyramids and the persistence of the mammoths. Both were monuments in their own way. One built by human hands to defy time, the other preserved by nature to ignore it. We do not need to dwell on how it ended. Eventually, the silence reclaimed them too. Perhaps the winters became too hard, or the grass too scarce. But they did not vanish in a panic. They simply faded. They became part of the island soil, part of the wind that blows over the tundra. They left behind a feeling of endurance. Even today, Wrangel Island feels different. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a place recognized for its stark, wild beauty. But to those who know the story, it is hallowed ground. It is the final bedroom of the Ice Age. When we think of them, let us not think of them as the last ones, lonely and sad. Let us think of them as the lucky ones, The ones who got to stay in the winter garden a little longer. The ones who found a safe harbor while the rest of the world drifted away. They remind us that time is not a straight line. It is a landscape with hills and valleys, and sometimes, in the hidden valleys, the past is still present. The rising ocean was not a destroyer for them. It was a blanket. It tucked them in. It kept the noisy world at bay. And so, the echo of the Wrangel mammoths drifts to us across the millennia. It is a soft sound, barely audible above the waves. It tells us to find our own islands, to find our own quiet places where we can be safe, where we can be ourselves, where the rush of the world cannot reach us. We can close our eyes and visit them. We can stand on that snowy shore, looking out at the grey sea. We can feel the heavy presence of a mammoth standing beside us, warm and solid. We can share in their solitude. There is no hurry here. The pyramids are still being built, far, far away. The modern world is just a dream that hasn't happened yet. Here there is only the snow, the sea, and the slow, steady heartbeat of the herd. Rest in this image. The island is safe. The water surrounds it like a protective arm. The giants are sleeping. And as we leave the island behind, letting it fade back into the mists of the Arctic, we turn our attention to the other inhabitants of this frozen world. For the mammoths were not the only ones to find strange and wonderful ways to survive. There were others. Creatures who did not rely on fur alone, but who carried their own fortresses on their backs. Creatures who turned their bodies into living citadels. Let us travel south now. Let us leave the snows of the north and drift towards the Americas, where the grass is dry and the sun is a little brighter. Let us meet the ones who walked with armor. Let us leave the snow-dusted silence of the Arctic island. We drift south now, carried by the gentle currents of the atmosphere. The air grows a little warmer, though still crisp with the signature chill of the epoch. Below us, the white tundra gives way to vast, rolling plains of dry grass. We are crossing into the Americas, a land of open horizons and endless sky. Here, in the tall grasses that sway like a golden ocean, we find creatures that seem to belong to a fairy tale. They are the obscure wanderers of the glacial period. They are the Glyptodonts. If the mammoth was a mountain of fur, the Glyptodont was a hill of bone. To see one is to see a marvel of geometry and protection. Imagine a creature the size of a small car, but round, perfectly smoothly round. They were large, cumbersome beings weighing up to 2 tons. Yet, despite their mass, there was nothing threatening about them. They were the gentle tortoises of the mammalian world, grazing peacefully in the afternoon sun. Their name, Glyptodont, comes from the Greek words for carved tooth. It is a name that hints at their hidden artistry. Inside their mouths, their teeth were wide and grooved, intricate structures designed for a single, patient purpose: to grind the tough vegetation of the plains. Listen closely, and you can almost hear the sound of the Ice Age in their chewing. It is a slow, rhythmic grinding, crunch pause, a sound of utter contentment. They were not hunters. They were not hurried scavengers. They were gardeners of the steppe, moving inch by inch, turning the tough grass into energy. But the most striking thing about them was, of course, their shield. Their bodies were protected by a huge, turtle-like shell, known as a carapace. that this was not the shell of a reptile. It was a masterpiece of mammalian engineering. It was composed of over 1,000 bony plates, locked together like a complex mosaic. Each plate was a hexagon or a rosette, fitting perfectly with its neighbors to create a seamless, rigid dome. Imagine carrying such a thing. It gives them a similar look to an armadillo, a distant cousin that we know today. But unlike the little armadillo, who scuttles and hides, the Glyptodont could not roll up into a ball. It did not need to. It was already a fortress. It was a walking citadel, a living castle. Think of the feeling of safety that comes from being inside a thick-walled house during a storm. The wind may howl, the rain may lash against the windows, but you are inside, dry and warm. The Glyptodont lived in that state of permanent security. It carried its house on its back. Wherever it went, it was home. Wherever it stopped, it was sheltered. To support this magnificent dome, they walked on elephant-sized legs, short, stout, and incredibly strong pillars of bone. They did not run. They did not leap. They plodded. Every step was a commitment to the earth. Thud. Dud. A heavy, reassuring cadence. They remind us of the value of being grounded. In a world of swift predators and changing climates, the Glyptodont chose the path of stability. It chose to be heavy. It chose to be unshakable. You can think of them as behaving more like a land tortoise or a hippopotamus. Calm animals. Animals that know their place in the world and are in no rush to leave it. They were quiet grazers, their heads lowered, their eyes watching the grass, their world contained within the curve of their shell. But recent studies have revealed a secret about their posture, a detail that adds a touch of wonder to their clumsy form. Scientists testing the strength of their bones discovered that the Glyptodonts bore most of their weight on their back legs. This suggests something marvelous. They may have been able to stand on them bipedally. Close your eyes and picture this. The sun is setting over the pampas, casting long violet shadows across the grass. And there, silhouetted against the fading light, the great dome of the Glyptodont begins to rise. Slowly, heavily, it lifts its front legs off the ground. It shifts its weight back onto those massive rear pillars. It stands tall. Why? Perhaps to reach a high food source, a particularly sweet branch of a shrub, or perhaps just to look around, to lift its head above the tall grass and see the horizon, to feel the breeze on its armored face. It is a moment of unexpected grace, the heavy fortress reaching for the sky. A balance struck between gravity and desire. And then, with a slow exhale, it descends again, returning to its four-legged stability. They also possessed a tail, an armored appendage that was encased in rings of bone. While some might see this as a weapon, let us see it tonight as a counterweight, a heavy pendulum that helped them balance, a rudder for their slow ship. It was simply another part of their armor, another layer of the boundary they kept between themselves and the world. These creatures conjure up images of a time when nature was experimenting with shapes. A wacky combination, evolution-wise, perhaps, but a successful one. They survived for millions of years. They watched the seasons turn from inside their shells. There is a profound lesson in the Glyptodont. It teaches us about boundaries. It teaches us that it is okay to protect yourself. It is okay to build a shell, to create a safe space where your softest self can reside. When you lie in your bed tonight, pull the blankets up a little higher. Imagine that your covers are your carapace. They are your mosaic of safety. They are thick and impenetrable. The worries of the day, the noise of the outside world, they simply bounce off the shell. They cannot reach you. Inside your shell, it is quiet. It is warm. It is yours. You are like the Glyptodont. You are safe in your own heaviness. You are anchored to your bed, supported by the strong legs of the furniture, held by the gravity of the earth. You have nowhere to go. You have nothing to fear. The Glyptodonts may be gone now. Evolution ultimately replaced them. The great shells are no longer moving across the plains. But in the dream time of the earth, they remain. They are the boulders that breathe. They are the hills that sleep. They remind us that even in a galaxy bound by gravity, even in a world of ice and wind, there is always a way to be safe. Sometimes safety looks like running, but sometimes safety looks like standing very, very still, wrapped in armor, waiting for the storm to pass. As we bid farewell to these gentle tanks of the ancient world, we realize that the Ice Age was not just about the surface. It was not just about the creatures who walked on top of the snow or the grass. There were others who sought a different kind of safety. Others who realized that the best way to escape the cold was not to build a shell on your back, but to find a shell within the earth itself. The sun is setting now in our journey. The shadows are getting longer. The air is cooling. And as the twilight deepens, we look down. We look at the ground beneath our feet. We notice mounds of earth. We notice tunnels leading into the dark. It is time to meet the architects. It is time to meet the ones who dug deep, the ones who found warmth in the embrace of the soil. Let us descend. Let us go underground. We have walked across the frozen tundras where the mammoths grazed in the mist. We have stood on the golden plains where the Glyptodonts carried their fortresses upon their backs. But now, as the evening deepens in our journey, we must look for a different kind of safety. We must look for a safety that is hidden, a sanctuary that lies beneath our very feet. We are traveling to the ancient lands of South America, to the coastlines of Argentina, near Mar del Plata. Here, the cliffs overlook the ocean, and the wind carries the salt spray over the grasslands. It is a beautiful, wild place. But the true wonder is not in what you can see on the horizon. The true wonder is what lies buried in the dark, cool earth. For over a century, people walking these lands have stumbled upon a mystery. They have found openings in the ground, dark mouths leading into the soil. At first, they thought these were just caves formed by water or wind, but as they looked closer, they realized these tunnels were too perfect. They were too round. They were too deliberate. These are the Paleo Burrows. They are not just holes, they are hallways. Some of them are massive, reaching 5 to 6 meters below the surface. Imagine walking into a tunnel that is nearly 2 meters wide and stretches for 40 meters into the darkness. It is a subway system for giants. It is a labyrinth of silence carved into the clay of the Pleistocene. For a long time, science was baffled. Who could have built such things? What creature had the power to move mountains of dirt, not with machines, but with muscle? The answer brings us to one of the most gentle and misunderstood creatures of the ancient world, the giant ground sloths. Specifically, the Glossotherium and the Scelidotherium. When we think of sloths today, We think of the small, sleepy creatures hanging upside down in the rainforests of the Amazon. We think of them moving in slow motion, fragile and light among the leaves. But their ancestors were different. The ground sloths were the titans of the earth. They were heavy, grounded, and immensely strong. They weighed between 800 and 1,200 kilograms. They did not climb trees. Instead, they climbed into the earth. Let us visualize the architect at work. Imagine a glossotherium standing at the entrance of a hillside. It is a massive creature, covered in thick, shaggy hair that smells of soil and rain. Its body is heavy, a solid anchor of warmth. It stands up on its hind legs, balancing its great weight with a surprising grace. Its center of gravity is low and stable, found above its hind feet, allowing it to achieve a bipedal posture. It stands there, like a bear, but with a face that is calm and curious. And then it begins to work. Look at its hands. The arm bones of these sloths were designed by evolution for a specific purpose. They form a shovel-like structure. The second and third fingers are unusually long, extended into formidable claws. To us, they might look fearsome, like weapons of war. But in the logic of the sloth, they are tools of creation. They are trowels. They are spades. The sloth reaches out and sinks its claws into the bank of earth. It pulls. Scoop. It pulls again. Scoop. The movement is rhythmic. It is slow. It is meditative. The bones of the arm are designed to withstand intense bending forces, similar to the legs of a galloping horse, but used here for the slow, heavy work of excavation. The sloth exerts pressure on the soil, carving out a chunk of clay, and pushes it aside. Bit by bit, the tunnel begins to form. The sunlight fades as the sloth goes deeper. The noise of the wind outside begins to muffle. The temperature stabilizes. It becomes a cool, constant embrace. There is a profound comfort in this image. The creature is building its own womb. It is carving out a space in the world where it fits perfectly. And we know this is true because they left us a message. They left us their signature. On the sides and roofs of these fossilized burrows, paleontologists have found scratch marks. These are not random scrapes. They are claw marks that have been perfectly preserved in the hardened sediment for thousands of years. When scientists took the hand skeletons of the glossotherium and placed them against the walls, they found a perfect fit. It was a match. We caught them, quite literally, red-handed. Think of the intimacy of that discovery. You are touching the wall of a tunnel and feeling the exact spot where a giant breathed and worked 20,000 years ago. You can see the sweeping motion of its arm. You can feel the intention behind the movement. It wanted to be here. It wanted to be safe. Why did they dig these great halls? Why spend so much energy moving tons of earth? Scientists proposed that the sloths relocated underground to insulate themselves. The climate of the Ice Age was unpredictable. It could be biting cold on the surface, with winds that cut through fur. Or, in the interglacial summers, it could be scorching hot. But underground, the temperature is eternal. It does not fluctuate. It is a constant, soothing cool. By digging these burrows, the sloths were creating a climate-controlled environment. They were building a place where the weather could not touch them. It was also a way to escape predators. Out on the open plains, a saber-toothed cat or a giant short-faced bear might be prowling, looking for a meal. But in the burrow, the sloth was king. The entrance was narrow enough to defend. The darkness was absolute. Down here, curled up in the deepest chamber, the sloth could sleep without fear. Imagine entering one of these burrows now. You leave the bright, noisy world behind. You step into the tunnel. The light from the entrance turns from white to grey, and then to a soft, velvety blackness. The air is still. It smells of ancient earth, of roots and minerals. There is no wind here. There is no rain. The walls are smooth and cool to the touch, polished by the passage of heavy, furry bodies over centuries. You walk deeper. The ceiling is high enough that you do not need to crouch. You are walking in the hallway of a giant. And then the tunnel opens up into a wider chamber. This is the sleeping den. Here, in the absolute dark, the Glossotherium would curl up, a massive mound of warmth in the cool earth. It would slow its breathing. It would close its eyes. The earth above it acts as a blanket, meters thick, blocking out the sun and the stars, blocking out the passing of time. It is the ultimate tucking in. We often seek this feeling in our own lives. When we are tired, when the world is too much, we retreat. We go to our rooms, we close the door, we turn off the lights, we pull the duvet over our heads. We are trying to recreate the burrow. We are trying to find that place where the walls are thick and the silence is heavy. We are trying to find the place where we are held by the environment. The ground sloths were the masters of this. They didn't just find a cave. They made one. They committed their energy to building a sanctuary. They understood that rest is not just something you do. It is something you prepare for. You build a space for it. In these burrows, many sloths might have slept together. They were social animals. Imagine the sound of their breathing in the dark. A slow, collective rhythm. Inhale, exhale, the sound resonating softly off the earthen walls. A lullaby of safety. They remind us that the earth is not just a surface to walk on. It is a volume. It is a depth. It has pockets of quiet waiting for us. And even though the giant ground sloths are gone, vanished at the end of the Pleistocene, along with the other megafauna, their homes remain. The tunnels are still there in Argentina. They are empty now, but they are not abandoned. They are filled with the memory of sleep. They are filled with the stillness that the sloths left behind. When you lie in your bed tonight, imagine that you are descending into your own personal burrow. Your mattress is the soft floor of the den. Your walls are the solid earth protecting you. The darkness of your room is the gentle shadow of the tunnel. You are safe here. No wind can reach you. No predator can find you. You are insulated. You are deep, deep down in the quiet layer of the world. Let your body feel heavy, just like the Glossotherium. Let your limbs sink into the bed. You have done your work for the day. You have dug your tunnels. You have moved your earth. And now the work is finished. The tool is laid down. The claw rests. There is nothing left to do but to enjoy the sanctuary you have built. There is nothing left to do but to let the darkness hold you. The earth is a patient mother. She held the sloths in her arms for millennia. She holds the fossilized roots and the ancient stones, and tonight she holds you too. Gravity is her embrace, pulling you gently down into the center of the rest. As we leave the quiet tunnels of the sloths, drifting back up towards the surface, we emerge into a world that is changing. The sun is rising on a new chapter. The Ice Age is drawing to a close. But there is one more group of beings we must meet. One more set of characters who walked this stage. They are not giants of muscle and bone. They are smaller. They are frailer. But they have something else. They have a spark in their minds. They have a dream that they are trying to paint onto the walls of the world. Let us travel to the caves of Europe. Let us travel to the firesides of the first people. Let us meet the ones who watched the giants and remembered them. We have explored the frozen north, where the mammoths walked in the snow. We have rested in the dark, silent burrows of the south, where the earth wrapped around the sleepers like a thick blanket. But the Ice Age was not only a time of cold and darkness, it was also a time of golden light. It was a time of pockets of warmth, hidden away in the tropical latitudes, where life continued its slow, heavy rhythm under a brighter sun. Let us leave the tunnels now. Let us float upwards through the layers of soil, back into the open air. We are drifting northwards again, but not to the ice sheets. We are moving towards the equator, towards the lands we now call Ecuador. Here the landscape changes. The stark white of the glaciers is far away. Instead, we find a world of dry forests and savannas, a landscape painted in shades of ochre, sage green and dusty gold. The air is warm on our skin. The wind carries the scent of dry grass and the distant sweet smell of water. In this place, we find a sanctuary, a gathering place, a spot where the giants came not to hide, but to be together. We are arriving at a place known to paleontologists as Tanque Loma. Today, it is a site of dry bones and dust. But in our journey tonight, it is a lush, inviting oasis. It is a watering hole, a jewel of cool, dark water set in the middle of the warm plains. And standing at the edge of this water, we see them. The true titans of the tropics. The Erymatherium. If the Glossotherium in the Burrows was a bear-like builder, the Erymatherium is a skyscraper of flesh and fur. It combines the height of a giraffe with the bulk of an elephant. Imagine a creature so tall that it can look you in the eye if you were standing on a second-story balcony. It weighs nearly 4 tons. It is a mountain that breathes, but despite its immense size, there is a profound gentleness about it. It moves with a slow, rolling gait, placing its massive claws carefully on the ground. It is a browser, a peaceful eater of leaves, reaching up with its long, languid tongue to strip the branches of the tall trees. Here, at the water's edge, we witness a scene of absolute tranquility. In a study from 2020, scientists reported finding the remains of at least 22 of these magnificent sloths together in the sediments of Tanque Loma. They were of various ages, great ancient matriarchs and small, clumsy youngsters. What does this tell us? It tells us that they were not solitary wanderers. They were sociable animals. They liked to be together. They found comfort in the presence of others. Imagine the scene. The sun is high in the sky, a warm, glowing disk. The heat ripples off the savanna. The sloths, with their heavy coats and massive bodies, feel the warmth intensifying. And so, they come to the water. They do not rush. There is no splashing or chaos. They simply wade in. Watch as the first giant steps into the pool. The water ripples outward in slow, concentric circles. The mud at the bottom is soft and cooling against its feet. It goes deeper. The water rises past its ankles, past its knees, reaching its massive belly. And then, with a sigh that rumbles through the air like distant thunder, the Erymatherium lowers itself. It settles down into the water. This behavior is called wallowing. It is something we see today in hippos and rhinos. But for a sloth of this size, it is more than just cooling off. It is a release. Think of the weight of 4 tons. On land, gravity is a constant companion, a heavy hand pressing down on every muscle and bone. But in the water, gravity loses its grip. The water pushes back, it lifts, it supports. As the sloth sinks into the pool, it becomes weightless. The burden of its own size floats away. Its heavy limbs become light. Its spine decompresses. For the first time in hours, it is fully, completely at ease. This is the ultimate spa treatment of the Pleistocene. The water is cool, a refreshing contrast to the tropical sun. The mud coats their skin, protecting them from insects and the heat. They lie there, half submerged, looking like islands of fur in the dark water. And they are not alone. Others join them. A mother sloth wades in, her baby clinging to her back or paddling awkwardly beside her. They settle close to the first one. Then another comes. And another. Soon, the watering hole is filled with a congregation of giants. There is a beautiful social silence here. They do not need to speak. The proximity is enough. They touch, shoulder to shoulder, flank to flank. They create a raft of living warmth. The watering hole becomes a bustling ecological hub. But bustling is perhaps the wrong word for tonight. It is a hub of stillness. It is a community of rest. Imagine floating above them. The water is calm, reflecting the blue sky and the drifting clouds. Below the surface, the giant legs are relaxed, hanging suspended in the liquid. Above the surface, the wet fur shines in the sunlight. Eyes are half closed. Ears flick occasionally to drive away a fly. The breathing of 22 giants creates a collective rhythm. It is a slow, oceanic sound. Inhale, exhale. It sounds like the earth itself is sleeping. There is a safety in numbers. When you are surrounded by your kin, you can let your guard down. You can close both eyes. You can drift into a deeper state of relaxation, knowing that 20 other pairs of ears are listening for danger. But here, in this moment, there is no danger. The predators, the saber-toothed cats, the dire wolves, they know that a wall of 22 giants is a fortress that cannot be breached. The sloths are safe in their unity. This scene at Tanque Loma challenges everything we think we know about the struggle of the wild. We often think of nature as a place of constant competition, but here we see cooperation. We see shared comfort. We see that the instinct to gather, to be with one's family, to seek out a soft place to rest, is as ancient as the bones themselves. It flows between them, carrying the warmth of one body to the next. It acts as a medium of peace. And for the baby sloths, this is a playground of gentle lessons. They learn that water is safe. They learn that the herd is safety. They climb over the submerged backs of the adults, using them as living islands. The adults are patient. They do not move. They let the young ones play, secure in the knowledge that they are held by the water and by each other. As the afternoon wears on, the light begins to change. The sun dips lower, turning the water from blue to gold and then to a deep, rich purple. The air begins to cool, but the sloths are in no hurry to leave. Why would they leave? The mud is still cool. The water still holds them. This image of the Eremotherium wallowing in the Ecuadorian pool is a powerful invitation for us. It invites us to find our own watering hole. What is your water? What is the thing that lifts the weight from your shoulders? Perhaps it is your bed right now. Think of your mattress as the water. When you lie down, you are wading into the pool. You are letting the surface rise up to meet you. You are letting gravity release its hold. Feel your body sinking into the bed, just as the sloth sinks into the mud. Feel the support beneath your back, your legs, your head. You are being held. You do not need to hold yourself up anymore. You can let go of the tension in your neck, the tightness in your lower back. The bed has you, and just like the sloths, you are not truly alone. You are part of a vast community of sleepers. All around the world, at this very moment, millions of other living beings are doing exactly what you are doing. They are lying down. They are closing their eyes. They are seeking rest. You are part of the great congregation of the night. You are connected to them by the shared rhythm of sleep, just as the sloths were connected by the water. There is a comfort in that connection, a sense that you are participating in a universal ritual. The watering hole of Tanque Loma eventually dried up. The seasons changed, as they always do. The drought came and the water retreated. But tonight, in our story, the water never dries. In the realm of sleep, the oasis is eternal. The sloths are still there. They are frozen in that perfect moment of contentment. They are still floating in the cool, dark water, their massive hearts beating slowly, their dreams filled with green leaves and endless summers. They remind us that it is okay to stop. It is okay to just sit in the water and be. You do not need to be building a burrow. You do not need to be marching across the tundra. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is to find a quiet pool, gather with your loved ones, and simply soak in the peace of the afternoon. The world can wait. The migration can wait. The changing climate can wait. For now, there is only the water. There is only the feeling of being light. There is only the soft, supportive mud. Let us leave them there undisturbed. Let us back away slowly, leaving the giants to their bath. We drift away from the tropical oasis, carrying the feeling of that cool water with us. As we rise back into the sky, the sun finally sets over the Ice Age world. The stars begin to come out, bright, piercing points of light in the clear, prehistoric atmosphere. We have met the animals. We have met the builders, the wanderers, and the dreamers of the deep. But there is one more character in this story, one more witness to this magnificent era. They are small compared to the mammoths. They are fragile compared to the sloths. They have no fur to keep them warm, no shell to protect their backs, and yet they survived. They survived because they had something else. They had fire. They had stories. They had the ability to look at the world and see not just food, not just danger, but beauty. They are our ancestors, the humans. Let us travel now to the caves where they hid from the cold. Let us sit by their fires. Let us see the Ice Age through their eyes. As the twilight deepens over the ancient world and the stars wheel slowly overhead in their cosmic dance, we turn our gaze from the open plains to the rocky hillsides. We look for a different kind of light. We are not looking for the cold blue reflection of the moon on the ice, nor the fiery glow of a volcano. We are looking for something smaller, something softer. We are looking for the flickering orange glow of a campfire. It is here, huddled in the mouths of caves, protected from the biting wind, that we find the final characters of our story. They are the newcomers to this frozen stage. They are the ones who did not grow fur, who did not grow shells, who did not grow to the size of mountains. Instead, they grew inward. They grew minds that could wonder and hearts that could remember. They are the humans. For the first time ever during their visits to Earth, the celestial observers would have seen our very own ancestors. But the human story of the Ice Age is not just a story of one kind of person. It is a story of two. First, let us meet the ones who were already there, the ones who had known the ice for longer than we had, the Neanderthals. We often think of Neanderthals as primitive, but tonight, let us see them as they truly were, the masters of the cold. They were the first humans to survive a glacial ecosystem, and they developed clever adaptations to do so. Look at their silhouette against the firelight. They were shorter and stockier than modern humans, reaching maximum heights of around 160 centimeters. This was not a lack of growth. It was a brilliant design. Just like the woolly mammoth and the giant bear, the Neanderthal body obeyed the laws of warmth. By being compact, by having a sturdy, thick-set frame, they kept their heat close to their core. They were built like the stones of the cave itself, solid, enduring, and unshakable. Look at their faces. They possessed large noses with a high bridge. For a long time, this was a mystery, but now we understand the elegance of it. This structure created a larger nasal chamber, which acted as a natural radiator. As they breathed in the frosty air of the Pleistocene, their nose humidified and warmed the air before it ever reached their lungs. It was a similar adaptation to the mammoths with their sinus pumps. It shows us that the Neanderthal was in harmony with the winter. Every breath they took was a transformation, turning the harsh cold into a gentle warmth within their chests. They were not just surviving. They were living. Contrary to popular belief, the Neanderthals had quite a sophisticated culture. They were not mindless wanderers. They were partial to cave art. They created ornamental objects to adorn their bodies, and they practiced burial rituals. Think of the tenderness of a burial. To lay a loved one to rest, to cover them with the earth, implies a deep sense of connection, a belief that the person is more than just a body. It implies love. In the flickering light of the Ice Age, the Neanderthals loved each other. They took care of their sick. They honored their dead. They sat together and watched the snow fall, sharing a silence that was filled with understanding. And then, around 300,000 years ago, another traveler arrived, Homo sapiens. Our direct ancestors migrated out of Africa, moving slowly generation by generation to colonize regions around the globe. They walked out of the warmth and into the cold. And there, in the valleys of Europe and Asia, the two kinds of humans met. It is easy to imagine conflict, but tonight, let us imagine the quiet moments of that meeting. The latest data suggests that Neanderthals and modern humans coexisted for up to several thousand years in Europe. Thousands of years is a very long time. It is enough time for neighbors to become familiar. It is enough time for curiosity to overcome fear. We know that they did more than just watch each other from across the valley. They mingled. They shared their lives. Paleontologists think that Neanderthals were absorbed into our population. In fact, most people of European or Asian descent today share between 1% and 2% of their DNA with Neanderthals. This is a profound thought to hold as you drift to sleep. You are not just Homo sapiens. You carry a piece of the ancient winter within you. You carry a fragment of the Neanderthal resilience in your very blood. They did not vanish completely. They simply merged with us. They gave us their strength, their adaptation to the cold, and then they faded softly into the river of our history. So, when you wrap yourself in a blanket tonight, you are remembering them. You are honoring the part of you that knows how to stay warm. As the Neanderthals faded, Homo sapiens continued to dream, and their dreams began to take physical form. During the late Paleolithic, between 50,000 and 10,000 years ago, human culture experienced a flowering of creativity. Hunter-gatherer culture was at its peak. People invested more energy in activities that went beyond just surviving. They began to create. They made personal decorations like pendants, small tokens of beauty to wear around their necks. But their greatest achievements were not worn on the body, they were painted on the stone. Let us travel now to the deep, hidden sanctuary of Lascaux Cave in Montignac, France. Imagine the journey into the cave. You are an artist of the Ice Age. You carry a torch made of animal fat and juniper wood. The flame sputters and dances, casting long, shifting shadows against the limestone walls. You walk past the entrance, past the daylight, moving deeper into the womb of the earth. You reach a chamber where the acoustics are perfect, where the silence is absolute. And there, you begin to work. You mix pigments from the earth: red ochre, black charcoal, yellow clay. You use your fingers or brushes made of hair, or you blow the pigment through a hollow bone. And you paint what you see. You do not paint walls. You do not paint yourself. You paint the animals. In just this one small cave, over 500 painted and 1,000 painted and engraved images have been found. They were created up to 22,000 years ago. Look at the walls through the eyes of the artist. There are the great bulls, their horns curving majestically. There are the horses galloping across the ceiling in an eternal race. There are the deer swimming across a river of stone. These images are often described as the Sistine Chapel of prehistory. And the comparison is fitting. This was a holy place, a cathedral of the wild. Why did they paint them? Perhaps it was a testament to their hunter culture. Perhaps it was a way to honor the spirits of the beasts they relied upon. Or perhaps it was simply an act of admiration. In a world dominated by giants, by the woolly mammoths, the ground sloths, the vast herds of bison, humans were small. We were vulnerable, but we could observe. We could capture the essence of a creature and hold it still. When the artist painted the bison, they were not just drawing a shape, they were drawing the power of the animal. They were drawing its breath, its movement, its life force. In the flickering torchlight, the painting seemed to move. The horses seemed to run. The bulls seemed to breathe. It was the first cinema. It was the first storytelling. We know our ancestors were aware of the Ice Age megafauna around them. They lived alongside these weird and wonderful species, human and animal alike, navigating the same raw, unforgiving wilderness together. There is a gentleness in this coexistence. Yes, humans were hunters. We developed tools, sharpened spears, and methods to survive. But there was also a deep intimacy. To hunt an animal, you must know it. You must understand its rhythms, its needs, its paths. You must respect it. The cave art is the proof of that respect. You do not paint something so beautifully if you do not love it in some way. These caves were the first AstroSleep channels. Imagine the tribe gathering at night, after the hunt, after the cold day is done. They crawl into the cave, safe from the wind. They light the fire. And as the flames warm their hands, they look up at the walls. The elders tell the stories of the mammoth, of the great bear, of the rhino. The children listen, their eyes wide, watching the painted animals dance in the firelight. The stories lull them to sleep. The stories make them feel part of something larger than themselves. They are safe here. The stone protects them. The fire warms them. The stories hold them. And today, we are doing the exact same thing. We have replaced the cave with our bedrooms. We have replaced the fire with the soft glow of a nightlight or a screen. We have replaced the painted walls with the images in our minds. But the need is the same. We need to hear the story of the world. We need to know that we are part of a long, unbroken chain of life. We need to know that the winter can be survived, and that there is beauty to be found even in the coldest nights. The Neanderthals are gone, but they live on in us. The artists of Lascaux are gone, but their paintings remain, fresh and vibrant as if they were painted yesterday. The Ice Age ended, but the memory of it is etched into our very bones. As we sit by this imaginary fire, feeling the warmth radiate towards us, we realize that we are the inheritors of this resilience. You come from a long line of survivors. You come from people who knew how to find warmth in a frozen world. You come from people who knew how to find beauty in the dark. So, you have nothing to fear from the cold. You have the fire within you. The flames of the campfire begin to dim now, turning into glowing red embers. The stories soften into whispers. The tribe is asleep. The cave is silent, save for the steady breathing of the humans and the distant wind outside. It is time for us to leave them to their rest. It is time for us to step back from the past and look towards the horizon of time itself. We have seen the cycle of the stars. We have seen the ice. We have seen the giants. We have seen the humans. And now, we must ask the final question. What happens next? The Earth is still turning. The orbit is still stretching. The dance is not over. Let us drift forward now, leaving the smoke of the Paleolithic fires behind. Let us float towards the future, towards the quiet promise that the winter always keeps. The embers of the Paleolithic fire fade into the darkness. The stories painted on the cave walls remain silent in the stone. And outside, the great wheel of the world continues to turn. We have witnessed the arrival of the ice, born from the subtle nod of the Earth's axis and the stretch of its orbit. We have seen the white blanket cover the continents, sheltering the giants who walked with such slow, heavy grace. We have seen the human spirit kindle its first flames against the cold. But as with all things in this universe, The only constant is change. The Ice Age, for all its seeming permanence, began to loosen its grip. Around 11,700 years ago, the Great Thaw began. The celestial dance shifted once more. The sunlight grew a little stronger. The summers lengthened, stretching their golden fingers further north. And the ice sheets, those colossal guardians of the land, began to retreat. They did not flee in panic. They simply melted, transforming from solid crystal back into liquid possibility. The water returned to the oceans, rising slowly to reclaim the land bridges. The Mammoth steppe vanished beneath the waves, becoming a memory of the sea floor. The forests marched northwards, planting their roots in the soil that had been hidden for millennia. We call this new chapter the Holocene. It is the time we live in now, that in the grand, sleepy perspective of geology, this is not the end of the story. It is merely a pause. It may surprise you to learn that, technically, we are still in the Ice Age. We are living in an interglacial period. Think of it as a brief waking moment in a long, long night. The Earth has opened one eye. It has pushed the covers down just a little bit. It is enjoying a moment of warmth before it eventually, inevitably, pulls the blanket back up. The Earth has seen 5 major ice ages throughout its history. It is a rhythm as natural as your own breathing. Inhale, the world warms. Exhale, the world cools. The cycle takes millions of years, but it never stops. Even within this warm period, there are smaller rhythms, shorter songs of cold and heat that play out over the centuries. Scientists speak of phenomena called Heinrich events. These are not disasters. They are adjustments. They occur on a shorter-term scale than the great Milankovitch cycles, happening roughly every 10,000 years. A Heinrich event is like a sigh of the glaciers. It happens when large amounts of ice are discharged into the ocean. Imagine great armadas of icebergs breaking free from the polar caps and drifting slowly into the Atlantic. As they melt, they release cold, fresh water into the salty sea. This cold water acts as a brake. It interacts with the great ocean currents, specifically the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC. This current is the heartbeat of the ocean, moving warm water north and cold water south, regulating the temperature of the globe. When the fresh water from the melting ice hits this current, it slows it down, it quiets the pulse. And historically, this has caused regions of North America and Eurasia to become colder and drier. It is a paradox of the planet. Sometimes, warming leads to cooling. The warmth destabilizes the ice melts into the sea, and the sea cools the air. It is a self-correcting mechanism, a thermostat built into the very physics of the world. We see signs of these changes even now. The ocean is always speaking to us, telling us where it is in the cycle. But we do not need to view this with fear. We can view it with awe. We are passengers on a vessel that knows how to take care of itself. If another glaciation period were to come, it would not happen overnight. It would be a slow, majestic return to the silence. It would probably require the alignment of another Milankovitch cycle to truly bring back the levels of ice we saw in the Pleistocene. But let us wonder, just for a moment, what that world would look like. If the frost returned, would the giants return too? Evolution has a way of repeating its best ideas. Perhaps in 1,000,000 years, new creatures will grow large to hold the warmth. Perhaps new woolly wanderers will march across new land bridges. Perhaps the earth will once again become a quiet, white sanctuary. There is a comfort in this predictability. We often worry about the future because we think it is chaos. But the history of the Ice Age tells us that there is an order. There is a pattern. The universe loves a circle. It loves to return to where it began. So, the question is not whether the ice will return. The question is simply when. And the answer is in its own time. In the deep, slow time of rocks and stars. As our imaginary time-traveling aliens pack their notes away and prepare to leave the Ice Age behind, they are left impressed. They do not see a planet of struggle. They see a planet of immense creativity. They see a world where life refused to give up. They see the diversity of creatures that evolved to thrive in the frozen world. From the digging sloths to the armored Glyptodonts, from the humidifying noses of the mammoths to the painted dreams of the humans. They see that life is not fragile. It is stubborn. It is adaptable. It flows like water, taking the shape of whatever vessel the climate offers. And as they lift off, rising higher and higher, the earth begins to look like a marble again. The white caps of the poles, the blue of the oceans, the green of the forests, it spins silently in the void. A beautiful, balanced jewel. The Ice Age is not a dead memory. It is a living part of the engine that keeps this planet habitable. It is the rest that allows the activity to happen. It is the winter that allows the spring to feel so sweet. And now, the journey is complete. The cycle is closed. We have traveled far tonight. We have drifted through the spiral arms of the galaxy, feeling the gravitational pull of Jupiter and Saturn. We have descended through the atmosphere to a world 6 degrees cooler than our own. We have walked in the shadow of the Laurentide ice sheet, feeling the ancient cold on our faces. We have stood with the woolly mammoths as they breathed steam into the dry air. We have curled up in the burrows of the ground sloths, safe within the earth. We have floated in the watering holes of Ecuador, weightless and calm. And we have sat by the fire with our ancestors, painting our dreams on the walls of time. It has been a long journey, but you have not had to take a single step. You have remained here, safe and warm in your bed. And now it is time to let all of those images fade. Let the white snow of the tundra dissolve into a soft grey mist. Let the massive shapes of the giants melt away into the shadows. Let the sound of the wind die down, replaced only by the sound of your own slow, steady breathing. You do not need to remember the facts. You do not need to know the dates or the names of the eras. All you need to keep is the feeling of endurance. The feeling of warmth held safely inside a cold world. The feeling of being part of a rhythm that is so much larger than yourself. You are like the earth. You have your seasons. You have your times of high energy, your summers of activity. But you also need your winters. You need your ice ages. You need these moments of deep, restorative rest where you pull the blanket up and shut out the sun. Sleep is your personal ice age. It is the time when you stop rushing. It is the time when you preserve yourself. It is the time when you heal. So, accept this stillness. Do not fight the heaviness that is pulling at your eyelids. It is just gravity. The same gravity that held the Glyptodont to the plane. The same gravity that keeps the moon in its orbit. it is a friend. If these calm, curious explorations help you unwind, I invite you to like or subscribe to the AstroSleep channel. It helps other sleepy souls find their way here too, one quiet listener at a time. And now, let everything go. The universe will continue its dance without you for a while. The stars will wobble, the planets will orbit, the tides will rise and fall. You do not need to watch them. They will be there when you wake up. For now, your only task is to drift, to sink down into the warm, dark burrow of your sleep, to float in the quiet pool of your dreams. You are safe. You are warm. You are part of the eternal story. Close your eyes, rest, and dream of a quiet, radiant sea of stars. Good night.